kick off.
Looks like lots of snow in Montana.
Tannermon.
That's how it was when I went. I was really disappointed because I wanted to see the mountains.
When was that last year or the year before? 2 years.
2 years ago.
And you went to Sitka and stuff?
Yeah, it was fun. It was quick, but I didn't get to see anything. So I was just like, where are the mountains? Like, what's happening? Oh, it's just too snowy. All right, we're live. Let's see if I can get this over here. There it is. There it is.
This is the Okayest Hunter podcast. Never pass on shooter bucks, because that's just meat in the freezer. It's your tag, you hunt how you want. This is Okayest Hunter.
Well, that's loud.
Oh, yeah.
Like really blew my eardrums out for some reason.
Feels kind of good. I can't, the new room I'm in this semester at school, we switched rooms this semester and it's real open. It's almost like a cubicle. It's like a classroom that's been divided with like a divider board. And the reverberation and the echo in there is just so bad. And my hearing is terrible. Like if there's any background noise or ambient noise, I can't hear. And like 50 times a day, some kid's like, "Oh, Mr. Miller," I'm like,
"What?
Come closer, son. Come closer." Like freaking old man Melker can't hear anything.
The church we go to is like, it's so much reverberation that I can't hear.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is a beautiful church. This is really nice, but I can't fucking hear anything. I'm like, I don't know what he's saying. I wish I heard the message. Yes. What a good homily that must have been. Everyone else seemed like they didn't hear it either. I don't know. Yeah. So I know the echo thing is a problem.
Yes.
Yeah, not great. Anyway, welcome to the show. We're live here in the Okayest Hunter podcast studio. Fun news. If you guys didn't see or hear, we've had Wild Strength live on our network for a hot minute. Like Whitney's not that new, but we're waiting to get like her cover art done to really kind of like post it and stuff. And so that happened yesterday.
Woo!
So that's exciting.
Cover art is sweet as usual.
Yeah. Shout out to Primo for doing a good job with all those. He's done all those for us. He's a good dude. Mason Primo is his name. Primo Design Co. or something like that. I'm not sure what his company is, but it's good stuff. Yeah. I'm like not sick, but I'm also not super healthy. So I popped like 3 Tylenol extra strength before I got in here. Killed the headache. I'm not drinking anything tonight. I probably should have grabbed a water, but I'm not interested in having any booze tonight. Like I'm just not.
You gotta mend.
I'm not trying to do that tonight. And someone, I think the other week was like, "Oh, pansy." I think it was Levi. And I was like, and then we poured more, and then that tasted like regret the next morning. I have too much to do to feel hungover. I'm like drinking less and less just out of pure necessity.
Yeah.
I just don't have time to be drunk or to be hungover.
I'm a little bit nervous because we're going up to Bo Belos, his dad's place, on Friday, and they have their big ice fishing tournament.
He invited me. I've not responded to him yet.
Sorry, yeah, he had asked me about it, and he said, "Do you think Eric?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, he'd probably love an invite," but I said the odds of him being able to make it are probably pretty low. He goes, "Yeah, that's what I figured, but I'm going to ask him anyway."
Yeah, I'll respond to him.
So we got the big ice fishing tournament Saturday, so we'll get up early. But like Dave and Adam and Bo and his like. It's gonna be a recipe for a few bush lattes.
You're gonna have a good
some
time.
Whiskey, but then we're like, we got to get up early and go catch some fish. And I got to jet back. I'm gonna leave like around 11, so hopefully we've caught all the fish by 11. Because then we have a daddy-daughter dance.
Oh, good times.
To a dance. So
cool, fun. Man. You gonna get dressed up for that?
Yeah, I got her. It's like a sock hop theme, like the old malt shop kind of thing. So I ordered a poodle skirt kit and stuff. So she hasn't seen it yet. But I got her a little get up, and then I don't know what I'm going to wear, but I'm going to dress up in something.
That's cool.
Halfway. Some suspenders and a shirt.
That's super fun.
Yeah, it'll be good.
We had a dance last weekend or 2 weekends ago. It wasn't like a daddy-daughter. It was like a Valentine's Day. It was chaos, man. There's just kids running around the school like freaking everywhere.
So like all ages of elementary?
Yeah, it was the whole. Yeah, it was wild. I was like, whoa. But anyway, we're brought to you by Nosler. Go to nosler.com. Only if you're 18, and if you're not, you just say, "Yes, I am." I didn't tell you that.
Bad influence.
If you just want to go look at some stuff, like whatever. And they have a lot of like I think they've been having a lot of success with their suppressors, and I think there's some really easier ways to buy those these days than maybe in the past through some other companies. So, um, yeah, we're gonna talk to them more about if we can like find a way to give those away or do a giveaway or do something with Foam Fest. We tried to do it last year, but it just felt like I wasn't far enough ahead on the planning side. So we're planning Foam Fest now.
Woo, look at you.
Usually I wait till like June. So it's February. I think we're gonna be in good shape.
Awesome.
And then we also have to get ready for our trade show in March at the Open Season Sportsman's Expo in the Dells. So just trying to like get ahead of some things a little bit differently this year.
This is a new and improved Clark.
Yeah, like Tyler's helping out, and Alec with BHA Wisconsin chapter's helping out with at least the Foam Fest side of things. So
It's nice.
got calendar dates back from Hurricane Marsh Bowman, or Hurricane Marsh Archers, I think is their official nonprofit name now. And we just got to pick a date. It's either like August 6th or the last week of August.
We usually do that last weekend, but
we usually do. But we were going to try to not to
earlier.
And I tried the weekend before, but that one's booked. So like that leaves me with the first weekend or the last weekend. So I'm like, well, what do we want to do? I don't know. So we got to figure it out.
Yeah.
But anyway, want to find some ways to integrate our partners a little bit stronger. We're talking about having OKS Cook come along and do a cooking demo, and we might be able to even have like the learn to hunt from the DNR help with the deer donation thing, like they've done at some other BHA events. So just trying to make this a little bit more dynamic. Certainly don't want to do the whole, I don't want to make it too rigid where there's like a seminar here and a this, that. Like, I don't want people feeling like they have to like rush around.
Having one or two things like that where they could, optionally go if they're not shooting would probably be a great thing. More things for kids. I think like doing the like fake blood trail and stuff like that with like the kids would be a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
So bring your kids if you're gonna come. If you haven't been before.
It's a ways out, but I think this is our 4th year of doing it, which seems weird to think about.
It's crazy.
It still feels like I just started doing this like that's the first one. But good time, lots of fun. Come along, come everyone, come all, and there'll be some good stuff. So we're just talking about Quick Trip before we hit the record button. Just stay tuned on our socials for that. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to be funny. And if you need some hot food, just pop in at your local Quick Trip. They got their hot food station, or I don't know if it's called station, but basically like where you get all the hot food.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
That's the spot where everyone walks in and then spends the next 7 to 8 minutes going, oh, gee, oh damn, that guy just turned out. What am I going to get? It's always a good lineup there of preponderance and wonder in people's eyes.
It's great. Rack Hub, which we gave a lot of shout out to Rack Hub the other week just because of shed hunting and the display. And I've seen some other folks with some other displays, actually, like even this week with some like cool.
Yeah.
You just kind of plop the shed in there.
The one with the C mount with gravel something.
Grave jaw or something like that.
Yeah, grave jaw. That's what it is.
Which I think is cool. Very different than what Rack Hub is. I mean, having, I think that's more of like a 3D printed.
It's like plastic,
but it works. But the level of what Rack Hub is and the fact that you can hold moose antlers and stuff, it's a whole different thing.
It looks much nicer.
It's a different thing. But I think there's probably room for all that stuff, Like,
oh, heck yeah.
I mean, I'm not opposed to the other one at all. We're partnering with Rack Hub. So, like, yeah, we like it.
It's the best.
Use code OHP. Latitude, they have a new pocket like holder that just came out. So if you're extra minimalist and you have their profile platform. Did I say platform?
Something.
That'd be a great name.
It's the platform.
Well, they have a couple, but it's the profile one, which the way that, what is that called? What is that? The arm? The
standoff? Like the standoff and the post.
It folds into the...
And like the actual standoff that goes against the tree folds 90 degrees to be level with the post. Which when you fold in, it is as slick as could be. It is one slim, tiny little profile.
Yeah. And I've obviously others that don't do that. It does bump out. It's not the end of the world, but whatever. Some of those like have some pretty pokey components to them. Like pokey is in they're sharp. They'll get you.
Oh yeah.
You gotta be careful. This one kind of folds into itself, so you don't gotta worry about that, which is nice.
Because it is sharp too.
Yeah. And then we have all these Gerber knives on the table here, which we do have a discount code for them now, by the way.
I love that knife.
This is like my favorite. This is the one I used to gut.
Yeah.
Code OHP across all of our partners, including Gerber, will save. Well, for Gerber, it's going to save you 15%. So They have some really cool stuff that they came out with too. Like this year, their camp, they have like some camp gear, camp cookware stuff. I wouldn't say it's necessarily just for camping, but for the guys that are doing like backpack hunting, mobile hunting, and like cooking food on their tailgate or in a tent, like Kevin Vistason's really big on the TP tent and stuff like that. Might be really worth looking into Gerber for some of that stuff. It's pretty durable and yeah, whatever. I'm like, look, there's going to be hopefully some things we do with them for Foam Fest with the cooking stuff too. So
I've been looking at their website quite often for not for hunting purposes necessarily, but as you mentioned, like camping, because I want to do the Boundary Waters trip with the kids this summer.
Oh yeah,
and having some good, nice gear that's not going to break the back, because I'm sure I'm going to be carrying it all.
We'll get it from a trusted brand that you know. Get a discount on it from using our code. Like, otherwise, you're just going to go on Amazon or walk into a local retailer and buy some shit. Like, buy the stuff that you can depend on and trust. And you know what happens is, with a lot of our partners on the consumer side, rather than reaching out to the support of the company, I'll get contacted. Like, hey, Eric, I bought this thing that you guys recommend, blah, 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 whatever. And it's not always a bad thing. That's not what I'm saying. But like with Spartan Forge, it's like, hey, how do I do this or how do I do that? I'm like, I don't know. I'm not like, but I do have some idea, and I'm happy to help. And if I can't figure it, I'll reach out, because like, you know, I do have a connection point. So, you know, by all means, send us your feedback and stuff. Anywho, today's topic is pretty nebulous. It's the perspective of deer hunting, and you know, with Derek being here and Greg's out in, you know, Montana for work.
Montana drinking beers by the looks of those pictures from the group
by really nice fireplaces and
Gosh,
stuff.
darn you, Tubbs, you're
working real hard or hardly working here. But we just posted the dropping pins episode of you doing your and hopefully it's all in the correct order. I have no idea if I got that right or not, but I was proud of that little movie clip.
I don't know about the order, but I know the Ben Stiller cutaway was real nice.
Yeah, well, perfect. Well, you did it. You set it up. I was like, I can't not do that.
I'm glad you caught that.
That's pretty great. Yes, you did. You went to Iowa. And it was a scouting mission, but you happened to find some sheds too. Like, it was a dual purpose thing, right? You were going there to.
Mostly, I mean, I knew it was early in the season to find sheds. So it was mostly to scout, but you know, I'm always going to look.
You found some, yeah.
I'm going to look for some sheds. Not going to not look.
This is a perceivably large property. I mean, Iowa's very different than here. You said you got out of the car, and I was like, immediately, whoa.
Yeah.
You know, and I think you talked about that before, but you have a way of looking for things that I admire and appreciate and would struggle to do so. I could be in like you and I did scout. We did scout last summer. We were hanging trail cams. You came with me, and you went like a slightly different direction than I went. And it was a very small plot of land.
Yeah, like we were in a narrow SWAT.
And we were like, well, let's just dive right into this. And you're like, well, this looks good, or this is what I'm seeing here. And you're not trying to like be an owner of that situation. You're really trying to like let me figure out and learn for myself. But I'm like, dude, I don't know what I'm looking at, though. I don't know.
It's so, and that kind of stuff, it's really hard in the summer too, because where we were at was like, it was all lowland, alders. You're by a creek or a river, so the grass is, you know, swallowing me because I'm not very tall. So I mean, it's so hard to see anything. You can see the main trail they walk down in summer, but knowing where all the other stuff, even seeing like older rubs was challenging because there was grass growing up all over the place. That kind of stuff's tricky.
But in how you look at things, I don't know. I'm gonna struggle to create an arc here for this episode, but there's a lot of like 101 or prerequisite things that I know we have an audience of like some beginners, some moderate, some experts. Like, we have a whole swath of people that listen to the show. So if you're here for big buck tactics, like, this isn't the podcast for you. It'll come up and maybe you'll learn some stuff through osmosis. But I remember when my dad and it took me a while to like actually learn this and apply it, but looking at how I set up in a tree, he's like, get at the bottom of the tree and look up the tree before you set up. Is it bending a certain way? Is there a knot in it? Like, how are you going to set up in this? And think about, you know, you're going to be pulling back like this, and this is your strong side. So if you need to be aiming that way, if we thinking this is where the deer is going to come from, you just set yourself in the tree. So you do that. I still do that every time I get into a tree now. And I actually still mess it up a bunch.
Well, now you're doing the opposite.
Because of saddle.
With your saddle.
And so that was actually a bit of my problem with the deer that I didn't recover. I think I could have had a slightly better.
Because
I was fighting the tree. I thought I had it right in my mind, and then I got up there, and where he came exactly down where he should have come down, and what was I doing? Like, what am I doing? It was just stupid. And with the saddle, if the tree's leaning a certain way, it kind of like wants to throw you or kick you out with the
torsion of the rope.
Yeah, it's almost like trying to like fling you a certain direction, and that's hard to compensate. So you can compensate by like rotating where your knots coming out.
I've had my knot like 270 degrees sometimes to try to be like, oh, now it's not pulling me so bad.
I'm like, is that what you need to be doing here? And then if you get your knee in just right, you're good. But if you let go, you're like suddenly you're gonna swing around the damn thing like a tether ball or whatever it is. You know.
And I want to get too far ahead of it because I like the story that you told beforehand with setting up the tree. So like, let's just dive back to that. So like, when you were starting and you're with Dad, are you guys setting up like a permanent stand?
No, it was all public. It was those little steps.
The screw-in steps.
No,
you guys had strap-on steps. Yeah.
The L-hook strap-on. There's a name for them. I forget every time. My dad will call me tomorrow and correct me on it. But yeah, then I would set up my hang-on. So then I would do a T screw to get my stand set on it, which I think is probably illegal because it's public land. But like, whatever. You had to do what you had to do.
We used tree screw-ins, tree steps when I was young.
You could just do that.
I mean, I don't think you were supposed to.
It was a lot of work.
But we had like, I think we would take like 13 steps.
Yeah.
Those metal ones.
I had like a mailman satchel.
In a fanny pack. It was just with that, with like a pull-up rope in it or whatever. And then you'd carry your stand in. And then we always looked for popple trees. It's because you ever try to put a screw-in step in an oak tree? Like, you're going to be sweating your butt off. So it was the same idea, right? It was like, you get there, look up. Are you going to have a place where you can hang it where it's not?
But back then for me, I wasn't remotely consciously aware of deer travel corridors, rub lines. I didn't know that a scrape was a thing, let alone when I did learn about them, I didn't know that there's a difference between a scrape and a rug, or a rub. There's so much I didn't know at all. I knew like deer tracks and poop. And that's as far as my knowledge went. I didn't stop to consider buck or doe. I just thought deer were here. And this tree looks like a nice tree. There was no rhyme or reason at all. It was like, am I going to be comfortable in this tree? And am I going to have a shooting lane? And that was it. And obviously, podcasting was really changed it for me because I was interviewing all these people. I was like, I never thought about that. Taking notes. And I'll go apply it. And so that's continued to happen over the last decade or more. And then hearing you talk, it's like I wouldn't have been able to hear what you're saying if I didn't learn all these other things along the way. Like I wouldn't have been ready to even hear the message. Does that make sense how I'm saying that? Like,
100%.
You would have said it and it would have gone right over because I wouldn't have known all the other things that had to lead into that.
And that's what happens with so many things outside of hunting in the outdoor world. It's just like, you can't hear something until you're ready to hear it.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's what you're talking about. And the same thing happens with life. Like you have to have the certain correspondence of events to put you in this place where you can totally comprehend what is probably
the right word. Because not that I wasn't ready or
You've heard it.
It didn't have any meaning to me yet.
There, yeah.
Because I didn't build up enough prerequisite knowledge. It's in college. You have your 101 course and your 102 or whatever, or your 201. Because you have to like learn this before you can learn that. You can't just jump right in. You will be lost and it won't make sense.
And that's where so many issues with like trying to help somebody who's very beginner and like going to the friend who's the best or like someone who's really good is probably not the best person to learn from because they're doing things that they can't even explain to you. Like it's almost better for someone who's new to like learn from someone who's
maybe not too far.
New, like the 201, not the upper echelon of like, you know what I mean? Like, because those people have such a hard time articulating or explaining what it is they're thinking because they don't even know they're thinking.
They've already gone through so much.
They haven't thought about it because that's just what they do now.
If you think about it in terms of an actual like physical journey across a map, if you and I were going to hike from Oconomowoc, Wisconsin to where's your place up north? Townsend, and go to Townsend.
We're doing it.
By the time I got to Townsend and someone said, do you remember what happened at mile marker 4? I'd be like, fuck no. Did you see that piece of gum? Oh, I probably did, but I don't know if it was mile marker 2 or 200. Like I'm so far past that. Like I don't remember that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to tell you, kid. You've traveled so far in your knowledge that you can't remember those first couple miles anymore. Like it's not there. And I think that that's comical to me about like when we were having our first kid and I talked to these adults that had babies. I'm like, what should I expect? Like, well, I don't know. I don't remember. I'm like, how do you not remember the most important thing that's ever happened to you? What are you talking about? But bro, it's like 20 years ago. I remember. I'm like, wow, I'm there now. I don't remember. It was 7 years ago. Like, I don't remember the things anymore. It's crazy.
And that's like you mentioned, we were talking a little bit before, but like when you see like new parents and how they interact, and you're like, wow, I used to be like, I used to like,
where's your hand sanitizer?
I used to be that careful.
Yeah, yeah.
And now you're like, wow, just don't put it in your nose.
Yeah, just don't die, okay?
Yeah, but it is kind of the same idea. And I think back to like, I was really lucky as you know, my dad was really into hunting as I was growing up. So like I spent a lot of time walking behind dad in the woods and just picking up stuff by osmosis. Like even without him explaining everything, like you walk down enough runways, you understand how they work. But like thinking back, I would say like the first 8 to 10 years of me hunting was like we just, like you said before, like sign, like tracks and poop. Like we hunted trails.
Yep.
And like that's what you did. You found a place where there's a bunch of trails.
Yep. Ooh,
you didn't know why there were trails there, but like, oh, look at all these trails. And then if like there's some rubs on those trails, this is a good spot. But in like the back of my head, I was always like, I'm missing something. Like I just knew. I'm like, what are we doing here? Like I've hunted 100 spots that look just like this and never seen a big buck come down them. Why do I keep hunting spots that look just like this?
Yeah, I'm like thinking that maybe the time is just wrong. Like maybe it wasn't just my turn to see a deer today. I didn't have that level of thought. Eventually somewhere it clicked. I was like, oh, I should probably press in further or something. Like,
yeah, but that was what it was like. It was like, and that's what I started to ask myself. And that's where like we talk about the trail cam shit, like hanging your trail cams to try to get a picture of a big buck in daylight. Like that all of a sudden changed like everything for me. Cause I was like, oh shit, like this is where they are.
Well, and I only used to hang a trail cam to try to get a picture of a deer.
Which is a great place to start.
I was like, whoa, they're showing up here. The day we hung the one that you and I hung, I was like, freaking 2 hours later, there's a whole bunch of deer here. But it happened to be daylight, actually, which was fascinating. And I was like, this is real. This is real. There's deer. And you're like, they're all going to change in a month, Eric. Like, take it easy. Like, what you see now is not what it's going to be. But even as a grown ass man who's been doing this for a long time and someone who listens and should know better, I was still like, it kind of tricks your mind a little bit. You forget, like, oh yeah, I needed to get it in daylight, and you have a lot of
and you don't need
real data for that.
You don't need
sure you don't need to, right?
Like it. I was just, as a learning tool, especially up north, like where there's lower deer densities. If you're in a real high deer density area, you don't need to be hanging cameras to get daylight pictures of bucks. You're probably just messing things up. Unless you're trying to learn, or you hang stuff on properties. But like up north where there's not that many deer, it was like, well, frick, I got to figure out where a deer wants to walk in daylight before you could throw 400 sits in the woods and like just guessing and like sitting on trails before you ever saw one. So that's where like I made that a mission for like a number of years, was just like trying to get daylight pictures of big deer in tons of different areas to see what they liked. And then I made a deal with myself that like I wouldn't hang a stand. It was a lot of work. I wouldn't hang a stand if it was in a spot that I hadn't had encounters either on trail camera or personal encounters in spots like that with big bucks before. So those like spots with all the trails crossing, and if it wasn't the rut, nope. Have I seen a big buck walk through a spot like this before? Nope. Then just don't do it. You're going to be tempted to do it because you're going to see deer, and seeing deer is fun. But like that's kind of what it took for me. And like I'm not saying like I'm like successful up there a lot or anything like that.
You have a big swings. Like if you want to get a home run, you're swinging at different balls in a different format. Like you're trying to get base hits. It's different.
Yeah.
And for me, I'll take base hits all day long. But if you want to like actually get a record hitting home runs, you're doing something quite a bit different, Yeah. And not to say that's what you're trying to break records, but I'm just saying
record breaker.
To me, that feels synonymous.
Just trying to improve.
And that's good. Like I think sometimes our brand gets a little bit of a bad rap. Like people think we're promoting shooting spikes, or even the word okayist would be synonymous with like you're okay with settling.
Yeah.
And that's not true. And I could see how people could arrive at that conclusion, but
for sure,
it's just kind of like getting the noise out of your head about what anyone else thinks about whether you're chasing a goal or happy to get base hits. Like it's no one else's business what you're doing. And know that no matter what you're doing, you're going to freaking make mistakes along the way. And that's part of the process.
And that's the whole perspective thing that you were talking about originally, like with like setting a stand and like the hunting, but like the perspective of like what it is you're out there doing. Like what are you actually doing?
I think
is the number of inches on that deer's head any, like would it be more of a memory to squeeze the trigger on whatever it was when you were like,
yeah, and I can see like the mature, like this does get me more excited to some degree.
For sure,
because it does symbolize. And for those that are listening, I'm pointing to the only big deer I've ever got in my life, which is like 135 inches or something.
It's a beautiful buck.
It symbolizes a mature animal, which has a lower likelihood of being seen and or hunted or especially killed, which then increases the challenge of the hunt. And I love being challenged, but I know that the ability to get a deer of that caliber takes a threshold of work and time and commitment that I cannot meet at this moment in my life, which is really frustrating. I don't think I talk about that a lot.
No, you never say that.
I don't think, like, I'm always like, yeah, well, I got to live in reality, and that's true, but it fucking eats me alive because all I want to do is go prove to myself that I can do it. And every year I think it's going to be some different thing. Like this is the year I'm going to have all the time to go do this. I'm like, but it's very frustrating. And it's really frustrating because I want to prove that it can be done and you don't have to be an asshole about it. That's like kind of like the bigger thesis of what I'm trying to do is like, you can do these great things and you don't have to have ego.
Yeah.
And I want to be like, I don't know, someone that can show that you can do these things and you don't have to be that way. And it is possible and it doesn't have to consume your life. But there's balance. And there's also luck. Like you could just luck your way into a buck any given year too. Like
of course, but I mean, it always feels good to accomplish something that that feeling is why we do so many things that we do, and it's the hunting aspect, and especially big, like you said, so much of it is luck that like when it actually does happen, you're like, holy shit, a lot of crazy things had to come together for this to happen. Like I had to have some sort of little bit of knowledge. I had to do things kind of right. Then I had to get totally lucky that this deer decided to walk out. And boy, when that happened,
and even the track job, like when we tracked your deer in the rain, that almost could have not worked out, even though you killed. It was dead, but we didn't know that yet. Suddenly we're tracking. We're like, ooh.
There wasn't a lot.
Yeah.
We were like finding blood under blades of grass. Like, oh, here's a drip.
Shit, that even whole when I ride of like the track job, you're kind of like, oh man, it's like until you get the keys to your house when you buy a home and the deal is closed, it is like nerve wracking the whole way through until you walk through that door.
And everybody's had that feeling. Anybody who's ever shot one, like gun or bow, but I would say especially bow. And I'm really bad at second guessing. Like I can watch that arrow hit exactly where I wanted it to hit. And as that deer runs off, if it makes it more than 30 yards, I'm like, oh my God, I might not have got him. Like, it probably wasn't good. He's still running. It's like, it's been 0.2 seconds.
Your brain's already like,
lay off the pessimism. But like, that's how my brain works. So like, I thought I hit that deer good. And then I got down right away. I called you or whatever, climbed down out of my stand and I went and looked at the arrow. And by the time it took me to climb down, I didn't even take my stand down yet. I just climbed down.
That's what I would do. Yeah, I'm not taking that shit down. Yeah,
like there was no blood on the top side of my arrow because the rain had washed it all off. The underside had blood dripping off, but I was just like,
uh-oh,
this track job's not gonna be great.
It was excuse me, it felt like a tedious track job.
Yeah,
like we were very surgical or scientific about like, don't go into that crime scene yet.
Yeah.
And you freaking watch where you step. Do not go ahead until you spot the next speck of blood.
We had 4 people out there,
which could be a problem.
Tends to be tricky when there's not a lot of blood.
I think we were well communicating
with
great. Each other.
You and Tyler and Caleb, you guys did it. It was awesome.
But there's all these things that, you have to learn this. Not even before you can learn the next thing, but like, that's the tricky part about deer. I think some people have actually built some like online courses of you should learn this before you learn that. You should learn. It's just, we don't go through those stages of learning the same way. Like we just don't. It's not how it works. And because experience is our best teacher in the deer woods. So even if you are following your dad, who's a damn good hunter, like you could be getting bad information or really good information that you can't make sense out of yet. Or you're too busy thinking about how you don't want to go to school the next weekend because you're in high school and school sucks.
And I think no matter who you're following or listening to, if you personally don't have the drive to go and do it yourself, you're not going to be successful. I just think about like my buddy Adam, who's my fishing buddy forever and ever, went to high school together, played soccer together, and he picked up hunting really late.
Yeah.
Onset hunter, 30 years old, 32 years old or something like that. Yeah, I think this is only like his 7th season, maybe 6th season. But like he wanted to learn from me because we were friends, and it's like, well, you've been hunting your whole life. Teach me some shit. So like I took him out and showed him a little bit, try not to like we talked about, like overwhelm.
How do you even decide what to teach him? Like,
that's so hard.
Here's the basic stuff. Here's the hardcore stuff. Like, I don't even know.
I was like, well, I'm just going to start saying everything.
Am I patronizing you, or are you going over your head? Like, how do you distill it down?
So like he would, he had questions, and I would just try to answer the questions in the best way possible, of like not giving him the answer, but like making him think about what, like the classic teacher move of like, you ask a question, I answer you with a question, like that kind of bullshit.
Why would they move through here? What do you think?
What do you think?
Bitch, I'm asking you. Tell me.
But man, with Adam, he's just an insanely, when he has something to fixate on, like he goes, and like that kid has put on more miles in the last 6 years than I put on in the last 15. Like he is just driven, and like he's learned so much, obviously, doing that like man, he's just as good a hunter as anybody else.
Well, some people will pick things up faster. Even like I look at a lot of people like entrepreneurs, and some can make it in like a year or two, and others take 5 years. And I'm like, what did they do or have that they could do that so fast?
Why do we have to be 5-year fuckers?
What's going on? And then just wonder, I'm like, why did it take me so long to figure out deer? And I don't have it all the way figured out by any stretch. I certainly have it way more figured out than I ever have.
For sure.
But that doesn't mean I have a lot. I still have a lot to learn.
You're going to have it all figured out and still not be successful.
Yeah. That's when you have your worst year, because you think, I got to figure it out. And then like the deer woods are going to humble you real quick for thinking that way. That's tough. And this is not like timely relevant information from a podcast standpoint. It's February.
No.
But I have been, because of the damn daily deer, I've been thinking a lot about like, what am I going to talk about? What is the subject going to be? And I mean, I think I have lots of ideas. Like, I want to go back to that Aaron Highbasin podcast we did, where we talked about the right socks for your boots, and they have to be the right thickness. I'm like, what? I feel like I've known this all along, but I never knew it for real, because I would feel like, there's too much padding in these fucking boots. My feet should be warm. Like, the idea in my head as a kid is more layers equals more warmth. If they're thick freaking socks, then I should be warm. But my feet feel squished in these things because they're too much compression. That's probably a bad thing. So like, gosh, there's so much to learn. And that's a whole other thing. Like, good luck hunting all day. If your feet are cold, you're out. You're not even going to last. Like, if you can't get that part right, good luck. Doesn't matter how much you know about the damn deer. You're screwed.
That's what's fun about like I like watching all the different topics on the daily deer that you've been doing, because you've been doing most of them, you and Tyler. And it's the same thing we talked about before. Like, you have to be in the right place to be able to absorb the information. I feel like you can watch like a year's worth of those tips, and like you pick up on like 40 of them, and then if you rewatch, you'd be like, oh no, that one makes sense.
Well, that's how
that makes sense.
I mean, it's no not to say surprise, but the Daily Deer came from the fact that I read the Daily Stoic and the Daily Dad, and I was like, wow, I can make a Daily Deer. Like, I'm not trying to copy Ryan Holiday exactly per se, but like,
it's a good idea.
No one else is going to do this, so I'm going to do it. Or if someone else is, I'm going to beat them to it, because that's just how this works. But if I've read the Daily Dad now for like going on, I'm in the 2nd year of reading it every day. And it strikes you different, because my kids are at a different age, and so am I. There's a different parenting style and technique that is now afoot that wasn't before. And so now I'm hearing new messages, even though I read it before, it didn't hit me the same way. I'm like, oh, this applies to me now, and it didn't then. And now I'm ready to hear it, kind of thing.
That's one thing I've definitely noticed doing, and I don't have a ton of episodes of the dropping pins, but we've talked to like 20 different
guys.
You
could go back and talk to someone.
Well, what's interesting is like looking back on it, I talked to some guys who are younger and some guys that have been doing it for a while, but like how they talk about it and how they think about it, like you can see the different seasons
where they're at,
where they're in, you know what I mean? Like what the focus is, or like how they're doing. Like
Blake's a younger dude, and he's figuring out the public land stuff.
I give him so much credit.
But he's in the aha moment, like right now. Like, he might have just gotten into the aha moment.
He just
had real time.
The thing happened this year where he shot that buck, and he told me, he said, this is not by far not the. I mean, Blake shot some huge. He shot 165-inch 8-pointer, huge giant deer.
But he's figuring out a new game now.
He said it was a completely different feeling than he's ever felt before when he shot that buck. It was it was just like what everybody's Googling and goggling. Oh, public land buck. But that's how it is.
They're two different games.
And I don't care what anybody says. It's freaking different. It is different.
I feel like it'd be like being really, I don't know, maybe this is a terrible analogy, but like Michael Jordan went from being the best in basketball, and then he tried baseball and he fucking sucked. It's like, turns out the athletics don't completely translate. I feel like, public land and private land don't completely translate. Like, just because you're a hunter doesn't mean you're good at this one and that one.
Yeah.
Like, you might go try your hand at public if you find a private land and suck at it. You might be a public land hunter. You probably would be good at private.
If you could
tell maybe I can't freaking figure out how to grow a crop to save my life. Like, maybe I have no green thumb and like, this isn't going to work for me. I'm just going to go back to public because I don't want to dick around with freaking driving tractors. That's not my jam.
Yeah, I don't think my dad would. I don't know. Like, he does a hunt in Missouri every year, just like a rifle hunt for fun.
Mm-hmm.
And he usually tags out like in a day or two every year. But like, other than that, I don't know that he could ever hunt private. Like, I don't know if he would ever want to. Like, he just doesn't interest him. Like,
well, it's funny. It's like a badge that I think that's like the public hunter, the hunting public has done that public land challenge.
Yeah.
And like some notable hunters have swung out in Pennsylvania. Put me anywhere. You could drop me anywhere and I will kill deer. And I'm not making fun of them, but like, I think that is a thought. And I think that they want to prove that to themselves and to others probably. And then they go to do it and they're like, they got real quiet.
That was a cool idea of a show.
It doesn't all translate. And to the point of like when I was trying to ideate on this topic for tonight, I think, what did it say? There was a big woods versus farm country versus suburban whitetails, same species, different mindsets. Like, those things are all quite different.
Like, look at, we've had Lee Ellis on the podcast before. Look at what he's doing. That is so
Unique,
different than every other way you
and
could.
People try to tell him it's easy. Like, no, it's not. No, it's not.
It is the world's largest headache is what that is. That sounds horrible. Like, you couldn't pay me to try to do that.
Like, can you knock on that many doors and feel okay with your psyche? Like, I did sales in the early part of my career. I cold called. I have like PTSD from it. Not really, but I'm not trying to knock on fucking doors. I don't need that level of rejection in my life anymore. I'm not interested.
A 10% success rate, if that, it sounds rough.
Yeah. And he's obviously made his own problem, like his own tactic, harder because he's shown it. So then more people go and do it, which then decreases his odds because now there's all these other door knockers.
Yeah.
And that's just one component, of course.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot of different, everywhere is slightly different. What's the other thing? The mistake of overestimating a buck's pattern just because you found sign. I mean, that's what we're kind of talking about.
Oh yeah, I've done that a million times.
And this concept that bucks have one bed, I thought that was like real for a long, long time, and I didn't even question. I was like, well, that's a buck bed. That's that buck's bed. Like, well, of course, that's where he lives. If I figure that out, I will kill him. And as time went on, years, I was like, what? Why the would a deer bed in the same spot all the time? Like, that can't be real. That just can't be real. You look at the MSU Deer Lab studies and how these deer travel and like the ground they cover. Like, I think they have areas.
Yeah, like,
but
so many of them
beds.
So many of them were bedding in multiple locations in one day.
But you had the example where you killed that 170 and another buck came and took his literal bed.
That was wild.
So like, I think there probably are that seemed to make sense because that deer's like, ooh, this old mature one bedded here. He's smart and old and wise. He's not here right now. I'm going to take it.
And just how that property lays out, like, just knowing how it is. It's a long, narrow strip of woods along a river. And the deer just like they find pockets like the does do right up by the river. It's all like brushy willow shit. And then those bucks cruise up and down looking for does. And I'm sure like it's very flat. So there's probably a couple spots that are like
pronounced
the best.
Yeah.
They might be slightly better, but like bigger ones are going to take
it's all relative.
The better.
Yeah.
Even if it gives them an extra 1 foot advantage, like
they're get out of my spot, Sonny.
Then as soon as he fell over, the other one's like, my turn. Walk right in. That was just so cool. And he laid right in that goddamn bed. That was crazy.
I remember watching it go down. You're like, oh man, it's the greatest one of my life. there's another buck.
Another buck.
Like, you like totally just stopped
right back into it.
and he embedded in the same bed. So there's like all these things that you're going to learn. And anytime you learn something new in a book, you're like, this is a book. You need to read that book. This is what I learned. Like, you get so excited because you're like, if only other people thought the way I thought because we read the same book. And then that's how book clubs start, probably. Yeah. But like, this is book club, you know, and at some point you learn something like, that's the way. Mobile hunting, saddle only, this type of terrain. And then you go and do it and you're like, man, oh boy, I had a lot to learn. Let me tell you how much I had to learn. I think someone commented on a post I put on Facebook the other day about like, you know, just our journey of the brand. And it's like, man, I got to admit, like I was one of the ones that shamed people. And I've seen it, but I've also done it. And I'm not proud of it, but I recognize it. And like, that was the stage that I was in.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, shit. Like, yeah, I bet you like a lot of people are probably there and I probably wouldn't admit it. We're all the heroes of our own story. We don't want to be the villain. That's like a human nature thing.
Wants to be the antagonist. No?
Yeah.
That was a really good post, by the way.
Oh, well, that was neat. I'm doing this story challenge.
Yeah, you're doing a lot of really good ones. They're interesting reads and they're getting some positive feedback.
And one buddy's like, yeah, they're pretty long, so I like seeing. I'm kind of like, I'm not gonna read that today. Like, I don't blame you, bud. Feedback received. I'll make a short one. I think I did a short one because I was like, I didn't have any good ideas. I was like, I've been saying this word wrong all along. That's my lesson for today. Me and my buddy climbing up a mountain. We did the camera angle funny so it looked like we were tilted.
Oh, yeah. I saw that one.
Yeah, that's fun. I don't have any other stuff really without dragging this thing on too much. Other than like, check out Dropping Pins if you haven't already. It's on the same feed.
It's on the OKS Hunter feed.
Yeah.
I do feel like I'm going to start rewarding how I talk to guests before the show to get them to come up with the stories because it's a good ask. I'm asking them to basically tell us a story about something that was really impactful to them and how it impacted their hunting now, and do it in an educational way that will teach everyone their learning moments.
Packing a lot.
It's like most of these guys are just guys who really like hunting. They're not but they've done such a good job, and the guests have been really good and awesome. And I would be lying.
You've been getting good feedback. I think I sent you a screenshot, or maybe you sent me one. Like there's been a little bit of back and forth both ways, and it's like the comments are pretty good. I think it's well received, right along with your scouting videos that you've been doing. But to ask the question of like when I don't know, I get obsessed with it because like I've started to see things click and shift in a certain way. Like I'm starting to understand things, and it's still pretty, I wouldn't say, I think presumptuous. Like I'm making quite a few assumptions about things, but they've been starting to come true more and more.
Yeah.
But I don't know how well that translates from property to property to property, which is why on the big property, I went and hunted that 2 years ago with Keegan. I was so obsessed with getting to the water on the property.
And looking, yeah.
I was like, look, I know how to read that. And if I can get there and if I can see the things that I'm used to seeing, I'll know I can figure that part out. The rest of this, I have no fucking clue how to do anything with.
Yeah.
And there are probably things in pockets that will work here, but I don't know those things yet. And I can't figure it out. But like, just give me to the water. And I'll figure that part out. That's kind of how I feel. Like, I think I've gotten one part figured out really well that I'm confident there.
Well, then if you have that common denominator, right? And then it's just how it links up to each different one. And there's always going to be similarities, but I think that's the one thing that gets guys in trouble is when you feel like you know what's going on. You like mentioned assumptions. They should be assumptions because you don't have no freaking clue. That's all you can do is really assume. And there's a couple scouting videos and hunting channels that are pretty popular, and I love watching them because I love learning from all different kinds, but there's one in particular, and it's a pretty confident gentleman who always, like, one thing I notice is when they spot somebody else's setup, like a hunting or like a trail cam, has a lot of negative things to say about it and what they're doing wrong. And it's just constantly presuming like the worst intent. And I'm like, man, when I find something, I'm like trying to think of what I can learn from it. Like, I don't know how or when or what that guy's doing. So I'm like, well, maybe this guy knows something I don't know. Like, let me see what's going on here. Like, learn it. And I think as soon as you think you know it all,
you put it by a script.
Oh, look at this deer's obviously going right around. Like, well, maybe he set up for it to do. I don't know.
Like, let's go audit your shit.
I just think it's a really dangerous game in any field when you think you know it all. Obviously,
Yeah,
it's never a good place to be.
I do see how you can get comfortable with like your shtick or like the thing you think you know.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to live in that comfort zone for a little bit longer. Like, I think I can still pull. I think there's a lot of fruit left on that tree to pick. Like I haven't picked all the orange off the orange tree. There's no business for me to go start an apple tree yet. Like I have lots of oranges to pick still. I can make plenty of orange juice out of what I've learned. I'm gonna go make lots of orange juice for a while. Like I'm not interested in starting a fucking apple tree yet. But some people do that so well that they get bored and they're like, I'm sick of oranges. I've had so much orange juice. I need to go start an apple tree. And then go do that. But the people are like, I've figured out oranges. Boom, we're gonna go to an apple tree now. It's like, whoa. You hold on. Like that's not the same tree. It's gonna be totally different. It needs different soil, like different like climate. Like those are different fruits. I think there's a lot more for me to get out of this style buck. Like where I got this one is very akin to how I've seen other bucks, big bucks, behave in a very, very specific exact type of area and 2 different properties or 3 different properties or 4 different properties. Like I'm starting to figure that out.
Well by your creeks, your rivers, and your marshy grass.
I want to do that. And then if I get really good there over time, then I'll be like, you know what? I'm gonna go try something else. But for the
big thing you've got going for you, and you do this really well for a person who claims to do it really poorly, but you never scout shit beforehand.
Not really.
You don't do postseason scouting. You don't that you're not putting in miles tracking.
I'd probably be a lot easier on myself if I did.
No. This is the thing though. Like you're not doing that. You're going out and just reading whatever sign you can find, and you're setting up first time in a tree, not a pre-pick location.
Yeah.
And you're having encounters. And what I thought about the other day, I was driving, I was listening to something, and I just got to thinking about it. I was like, well, shit. Up north, the ones I got were always the first time I ever hunted.
The first hit is like,
and then all the deer down here that I got were the first time I was in a spot, walking in and just setting up without pre-scouting and like no trail cameras in there. Like every buck I've shot since I lived down here was just a stumble in and set up and boom. And it was like, why am I spending so much time like pre-scouting and picking trees? I'm not killing deer out of those trees. Like I'm not.
Yeah, at some point, you get so good at something that you kind of have a gut for it. Like you just kind of know. And I think you probably are at that level. Like I don't know that you do need to put that much in. I think you have enough in.
I just enjoy it.
You just enjoy it. And it's not going to harm you. I think it does make things better. But you're the kind of hunter that has enough gut intuition that like you would make a choice and it would be right because you fucking have just done it enough times. Like in business, I just know what's going to happen because I've been there so many times. I already fucking have seen that play out 800 times. I already know what's going to happen here. I don't need to think twice about it. I remember I was working for a company and I've always been so obsessed with business, but the company was going out of business and no one else knew it, but I just did. And
this without any information.
I just saw the signs. Happen. I was like, this is going out of business. We're not gonna have a job in like 2 weeks. This is going belly up. And it did. And I didn't have a job and it went belly up. And it was just a really abrupt end to the business. It was a Verizon reseller. It wasn't like a corporate store. It was a Verizon store that wasn't a corporate Verizon store. And I was in college. I was working this stupid job. And the guy that got put in a managerial position was like some fucking kid. And I was like, I mean, the ego of this kid was like very ridiculous because I'm like, dude, I'm in school full time. I have no business staying. Like, you think you've good for you, like whatever. But I'm like, just so you know, this place is going out of business. He's like, no. Why we're going to turn the store? Why we're going to be the number one store, Eric? I'm like, you're so pumped full of the Kool-Aid right now. Like, I can't handle you. But just like when you figure it out, like we can talk. Okay. Cause I'm not your little bitch. It wasn't even like an authoritative. I was just kind of annoyed. And then he started to figure it out. And he's like, how did you know? I was like, bro, I watch Shark Tank and read business stuff all day. I'm in school for business. Like what? It's pretty freaking obvious. The writing's it's on the wall. They're literally taking stuff out. They've taken the writing off the wall. What are you talking about?
The writing was
no inventory coming in. Like
no, it's gone.
Managers are getting fired. Stores are getting shoved around. That one's closed. They're consolidating. Like the whole thing's done, man. And like I was like, I don't know if we're gonna get a freaking paycheck. You know, hitting the last paycheck. He's like, I don't think the bank's gonna cash us. Like, yeah, they're probably not. So like, it was a whole thing. Anyway, you see stuff enough times. Or you study it closely enough and you can walk into a property and I think you could figure it out like you would dismantle it very fast.
I feel like that's one of probably my strengths is I'm good at thinking like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I had that.
But
I'm more relaxed. I'm like, this looks like I have enough, but I'm probably missing things that you would stop and be like, Eric, this is key right here. And you probably killed buck way before I would. And like, maybe I could still do it, but like, you'd beat me to it.
You never know.
You'd be like,
you never know.
I'll let this deer walk to Eric, but just know I killed it.
No, I would never. I would smash that thing. You would. Let it run right by you. No. But that's like how it works for deer too, right? Like everyone talks about the sixth sense, like that they have.
They've been through it so many times.
Experienced so many
encounters.
Tom, Dick, and Harry's up in the tree that they get good at knowing where people are going to be, where human interactions tend to happen.
And they move so slow. Speaking of Lee Ellis, the one video where the one of the more recent ones where this big huge deer. They're all big huge deer, so I don't know, but
it's ridiculous.
The scene went on forever, man. It was like this buck was just slowly working his way to him. Like anyone else would have shot this thing a long time ago, but he just waited and waited. But you're like, I'm watching this going, my God, this deer feels zero pressure, has no idea Lee's there, has never really ever been hunted, has been on this private parcel,
has never been hunted there a day.
And it's just moving at the speed of sloth, working through this area. I'm like, now imagine how a pressure deer moves or doesn't move. My God.
If that's one thing that, man, you see it over and over again in lots of hunting videos. That's when they put up the clock in the bottom corner and they let the time, like they speed it up, because if there's one thing that it's got to be an older buck, 5.5 or older. If there's one thing they're good at, it is waiting, taking their time and being patient. And that's exactly how I messed up. Like with 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I had that great big one that I was hunting, and I heard that deer coming, and I got ready, and I waited 20 minutes, and then I was like, must have worked off. And I hung my bow up. No, he didn't. He was just standing there, looking, waiting, listening, smelling, making sure things were clear, and then he literally popped out of the last place I heard it and walked right underneath me, and I was ill-prepared.
My God.
And that's when I messed it up, man.
Yeah, when you think you hear a deer, when you sat in the woods, I don't mean long enough in the course of like the history of hunting. I mean that, but in the context of a single hunt, the squirrel and the deer. You really do. The squirrel still might get you going, but like you hear a twig snap a certain way, like you know it's freaking deer.
Yeah.
And every time that's ever happened, and I've written it off, I've been fucking wrong. So same. Like I heard something like, ooh, nah. And then, oh shit, there he is. It was a deer the whole time. Like, and so that is how I killed the deer. I got, lo and behold, it was the tiniest deer in the damn forest. I don't give a shit.
This year's?
But I heard it. I heard a sound. I was like,
talking about the one this fall?
Yeah. And I was like, that is a deer. So I knew he was coming and he was working his way towards me. So by the time he did get there, I was at full. You saw the video of the GoPro overhead. I was ready to go. And it's because I was onto him well before he was ever onto me. And if that would have been a mature buck, I don't know if that would have ever even played out the same way whatsoever.
Could have.
But regardless, I would have been ready because I trained. I was like, never again is that mistake happening again. Like anytime I hear that, it's like stay frosty. Like there will be a deer coming. Just be ready for it. And that's
exactly what I thought when I literally, because it was my weak side. I was in a saddle in this tiny little tree. And I grabbed my bow and brought her over to my weak side, and I shifted over here, and I was like standing there for 20 minutes, didn't hear anything else. And I literally hung it back up, and it was like a minute later, and all of a sudden I heard, and I just saw him coming, and the first thought was, "You freaking idiot!" And I was just
because when they're that close, then you can't. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, he's coming right behind me. So that's when I picked up the bow. And I looked to make sure he was still on the trail that was 4 yards underneath me, and he was. And when I moved the bow and I was looking at him, I freaking bumped that branch and my arrow went boom.
You'll never forget it. Oh my God.
No, that one hurt a lot. I mean, that was a really big deer.
You like, what's that old Kelly Clarkson song? Some people wait a lifetime for a moment like this. Except I fucked it up and I didn't kill the fucking deer.
I could have spat on his head. He was right underneath me. Have fun, buddy.
I'll never see him again.
Never did see him again. Never on trail camera again. Never. He blew me a kiss.
Yeah, he's like,
off into the wind.
I'm gone from your life. There's nothing you can do about it.
We see that. What an idiot.
The deer, like, did he even like tail up and run up? Nothing.
No, he was super calm. Like he heard the thing.
He knew he was
heard
in
it
the clear.
above him. He bounded like 2 jumps into the brush. Then he just stopped. Gave one of these, flicked his tail, and just walked off into the brush. I was like, "Goodbye, my love."
It was like the deer I messed up, and I blame Tubbs, but it was actually a little bit his fault, to be honest.
I blame Tubbs, but it was pretty much his fault.
Texted me some article about something. And I'm like, reading it, and I'm like, oh fuck, there's a deer coming. And it was like, I never have had a target buck, but it was the first year I ever hung a cell cam, and that's the only buck I've ever seen on this thing. Looks good. I think that's probably when you started coming around. It was on a conservancy property, and that deer just happened to come up. I'm not like I was. Gosh, how do I think about this? So if there was like a rock formation going down this hill, and it was a bit of a tree line, like shrubbery trees, but in these rocks, and let's just say the down part of the hill is south, and the way the wind was blowing, what's happening with my brain? North, south. Is this east, west?
This is south.
I have the compass
This
upside
is
down.
east.
So the wind was blowing from the east to the west, and I was just gonna sit there in the morning and then work my way deeper and then hang a set for the afternoon.
This.
And so it was morning. So I was like, what? I'm just sitting on the ground because it's a road. I'm just going to hunt all day. I was sitting on the ground. My dad was on a different part of the property. And I was like, I have seen deer move up the east part of this tree line. So I'm going to sit on the west part.
Downwind. Yep.
Downwind. And so if something comes out of this bottom, like I think they do, I'm going to kill it. But I don't think that's going to happen at all because I don't have any expectations for the morning. Sure shit, deer comes out of the stuff where I thought he was going to come out of, except he came up on the west side. And I was like pretty exposed. I didn't have any backdrop like I did if the deer would have come the other way. But had I not been texting, I actually could have like been full draw on this thing and had an opportunity at letting one rip.
That was a pretty nice buck too.
And I was on the ground, and it was a really nice buck for me, especially like this, probably something like this, if not a little bit bigger. And I was like, my bone. The deer's like, "Are you really gonna try this right now?" I was like, "I'm really gonna try this right now." And by the time I drew back, like he was like completely vanished, gone into the grass. I was like, I don't even know what just happened right now. And I was like, damn it!
Was that real?
And
damn
so
you,
I'm
Tubbs!
never texting ever again.
Oh.
Never, ever, ever during the rut. Like, what a waste of my fucking life.
It's one of those ones where the deer was like, really, guy?
What are you doing here?
Really, guy?
But I had him. I would have had, like, he was nonchalant coming out of there. And I was like, oh my God, I've done it again. I put myself in front of a big deer. I can't believe it.
You're better at it than you give yourself credit for.
Cannot kill the damn things because of stupid shit like texting.
It's almost like they don't want to die. It's really annoying.
Yeah. They do not. They really don't give you a lot. There's no second chance with these things, especially with a bow in your hand. Like, it's not happening. Even with a gun, that would have been hard because he took off pretty quick when he realized what was going on. It didn't take him too long. And then, of course, what had happened is he actually winded me before he saw me. Of course, the wind was blowing in his favor, and I was like, if only you came up the other side, I could have had a better shot at this whole thing. But he winded me, and then he stopped dead in his tracks, right in my wind, like. Whatever the scent cone, and you could tell he just like he hit a wall. Like
when you see that head go back and ears come forward,
yeah, it's game over.
It's never good.
And I was like, there's no chance I'm gonna reach my bow right now. Like, this sucks. But I remember like in a scene, I like dropped my phone. Like I just dropped it and flung it like a shoplifter, like trying to get rid of something. I was like, done. Grab the bow. He's right on top of me. This isn't gonna work. Like, and you in your mind, you're like, ooh. There must be something I can do to make this happen. Like you reach for your bow and like, oh, well, you never, I mean, I got to try for it. You got to freaking try, but it's futile.
Yeah. That's a low percentage, but you got to try.
You got to try. Like maybe something else pops off for that when he looks back, which is what happened with the deer I shot this last year. Dog started barking at.
He looked off to the other
way. And he
was
like, the dog kind of saved my ass for a second there. And I probably should have shot him right then. That was probably the other mistake I made.
That's okay.
Lots of mistakes. And then you just play it all back in your head 100 times of what you could have done different. It's like the movie Tomorrow Never Dies or Ends or whatever that is with Tom Cruise, where it's like every time he gets a little bit further, he learned enough here at this stage, and then he gets further to places he's never been before, and he makes a new mistake, but then he has to start over. So it's like you just keep starting the game over, and you get a little bit further, a little bit further, a little bit further. Eventually, you finally kill a deer. That's what it feels like.
That's what it goes. That's what it all goes into trying to just shoot a freaking deer.
Yeah.
In your pastime.
And our wives can't understand why we get so excited about every year. I'm like, because we get to pick up where we left off.
And you get to test.
It's like a bit of a reset.
All the shit that you've been thinking about for the last 365 days.
It's exciting. So that's our episode today. Dan, thanks for the comments. I see in here now. Deer can't know where you are. You're sitting if you don't know where you're sitting. Touche.
Ooh, I like that.
And he said the buck I shot was totally comfortable where he was, even though he got spooked by a shot 2 minutes earlier because nobody was talking or taking a canoe back there. So the buck was like, the fuck? No one's ever been here before.
This is not a human spot.
Canoe hunting is one of my favorites, by the way. My last archery hunting, I had a buck step up 30 seconds after I sat down. That's crazy. You're not ready for that.
No.
That was kind of like yours. You're like barely even set up.
Yeah, I was hanging the platform, the gun buck this year.
That's the best.
That's cool.
You almost kind of hope for those hunts and simultaneously you don't. You like want to be ready for it.
That's one of those ones where you just don't feel like it's happening and you're happy. Like, that's not a fucking buck right there. There's no way that's a buck.
Yeah, because then that happens. You're like, how did he? What? It's like, huh? I thought you're supposed to be smart and hard to kill.
Why did I bring all these cold weather clothes? Like, it was only going to take 15 seconds.
I was making all this noise. What are you doing here, buddy? I'm not ready for you yet. Maybe that's one of their tactics too.
Called them in with the profile platform.
Just scraping a tree.
I mean, I had all my trees. We've done that before with our climbing sticks, and I just hung like 7 of them. So
someone's running the tree out here. Yeah. Well, thanks for tuning in, folks. Check out Dropping Pins. Check out Daily Deer. Check out Wild Strength and all the other shows on the OKS Podcast Network. There are officially 14 of them. 15 is on deck, and it'll be a little bit of time before I get that one out, but it will be gear centric, not hosted by me, hosted by someone that knows gear. So that'll be neat. No idea what we're going to call it yet, and going to work through all that stuff. So I think that's kind of all I have for now.
Cool. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Have a good night or a good day or whenever you listen.